Hello everyone. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be demonstrating how you can publish a map from your simple GIS client project as a tile mapping service to a simple GIS server instance. To begin, you would need to have a project with a map loaded, and you would need to make sure that your map is set to the Web Mercator projection. Now this is the de facto standard projection for tile maps, such as they're common with, like, for instance, Google Maps and Bing Maps. And so to set your view projection, you would just need to check under the View drop-down menu and go to the Set View Properties menu item and just check that your current projection is set to the Web Mercator projection. If not, you can click on the link for the projection and then choose that Web Mercator projection for your map. The other thing that you would need is you would need the GIS Server admin plugin loaded and installed on Simple GIS Client. Now, if you have not installed the GIS Server admin plugin, you can install it again from the File drop-down menu in your Simple GIS Client project on your map view. Go almost near the bottom of the drop-down menu and select the Plugins menu item. In the dialog that appears, you would select the Simple GIS Server admin plugin. And again, if you have not yet installed this plugin, once you've selected, you would click the Install Now button. This would actually download the installer and then run the installer to install the plugin. At this point in time, you would need to reopen your project to make sure that the plugin gets loaded into your project. So at this point, I'm going to close this dialog. And I already have the GIS Server admin plugin installed on this machine. And once it is installed, whenever you open a project under the map view, if you were to go to the File drop-down menu, at the very bottom of that drop-down menu, you would see an Administer Simple GIS Server menu item. This is the menu that you would use to administer your Simple GIS Server instance. So you would select this menu item and you would get a new dialog. In this dialog, you would need to enter the URL of your Simple GIS Server instance. And if you have not yet connected to that server instance, you would need to click the Connect button. And at this point in time, you would enter in your user credentials for this server instance. Once you have connected, you would see the amount of free space you have available on your Simple GIS Server instance for storage. So in this case, I see that I have just over 14 gigabytes of storage available. Now I could publish my current map as a tile mapping service by clicking on the Publish TMS button. In the dialog that appears, any published TMS maps would show in this list box on the left-hand side. Currently, I have no published tile mapping services, and so it is blank. And so to publish my current map as a tile mapping service, I would click the Publish Current Map as TMS button. This will again present a new dialog for me to select the workspace that I want to publish the tile mapping service to. I could choose to publish it to the public workspace, which means the tile mapping service would be freely available to anyone with a URL without having any type of sign-in. Or if I wanted to restrict access to my tile mapping service, I could choose a different workspace that may be available on my Simple GIS Server instance that would limit access to only specific users. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the public workspace, and I'll click Apply. And now I would enter a name for my new tile mapping service map. So I'm going to choose something very easy for this demonstration. I'm just going to call it My TMS. Click OK. And then at this point, I need to specify a few settings for my tile map service. First, I need to specify a maximum zoom level and likewise a minimum zoom level. I also would need to specify the format for the tile images that's going to be used to serve my tile maps out. I could choose either a JPEG, which is a lossy compression, and then I would also need to choose a quality for the JPEG. And since it is lossy, a lossy compression, I could decrease the JPEG quality, which would increase the compression, but I would also lose some image fidelity. Conversely, if I wanted to choose a different lossless compression, I could choose the portable network graphic format, which I am going to use for this particular tile map service. Also, instead of manually specifying the max zoom and minimum zoom levels, I could select a particular layer in my current map that I want to use as the boundary for my tile map service, which is very easy in this case since I only have one layer loaded. And so to choose that layer, I just simply click in the checkbox next to the layer name, and then based upon the size and extent of the layer selected, it will automatically calculate an appropriate maximum zoom level and minimum zoom level. In addition, it gives me an estimate here for the total number of tiles and the total size of my tile map service. So in this case, I can see based upon these zoom levels and the size of the layer that I have chosen that it would generate just over 4,300 tiles and a total estimated size of about 650 megabytes. Now this file size tends to be a little estimated a little higher than what it normally turns out to be. But again, it's just an approximation, and based upon this and what was reported as my available storage space when I first connected to the Simple GIS server, I can see that I should have plenty of storage room to save all of these tiles on my server. So once I have selected this information, I click Apply, and then the application is going to go through the process of compressing and then uploading all of the data needed to generate the tile maps to the server. I get a status progress at the bottom of this dialog indicating the current progress of generating the tile map. So right now it's currently simply uploading the data. And since this is a relatively large TIFF image, it may take a moment or two, depending upon your internet speed, to upload all of this data to the server. Once it has uploaded all of the data, I get this message saying that it is finished publishing. But that's only step one. You notice if I've selected my tile mapping service here, I also get a status for the actual generation process for all of those tiles that the server is currently running. So as this data is published to the server, it will then take the data and it will begin the process of generating all of the tiles needed for the tile map service. And as I click on any particular tile map, I'll get a status indicating the progress of the tile generation. So currently it has generated just over 600 of the required 4,311 tiles. If I was to dismiss this dialog, and if I was to come back to the published TMS, and if I was to select, and I could have multiple tile map services published under here, and I could select any one, and I could receive the status of the current tile generation for that particular service. Now, even while the tiles are being generated, another Simple GIS client user or even myself, I could add this current tile map as a layer into my map. And for the tiles that have been generated, they would be displayed. For the tiles that have not yet been generated, they would just be blank until those tiles are generated. So we can see it's about a quarter of the way done now. It's just at about 1,000 of the required 4,311 tiles. So let's go ahead and dismiss this dialog. Now, like I said, the tile map service already exists on the server. It has it, and now it's just in the process of generating the tiles. But I can go ahead and add that tile map service as a layer into my Simple GIS client instance. And so what I've done, I just simply clicked on the Add Data as Layer to Map tool button here in the upper left corner. And for the type of layer that I'm wanting to add to the map, I'm going to select Add Internet Mapping Service Layer. And then I will give it a name for my layer. And for the type of Internet Mapping Service, I'm going to select the TMS tile set. And at this point, I would enter in the URL for my tile map service. So again, I'm going to start with HTTPS in this case, because this is a fully qualified URL. And in the particular instance I'm connecting to, it is set to support SSL, has its own certificate. So I would use the HTTPS, and then I would do the URL for my simple GIS server instance. And then I would follow that with a slash, and then enter the workspace where I published the tile map service, followed by a slash, and then I would enter TMS, indicating that I'm wanting to connect to a tile map service. Then I would enter the name of the tile map service that I'm wanting to use, followed by a slash. And then finally, tiles is the folder where all the tiles are stored at. And then I would do the curly brackets, followed by the Z for the zoom level with a slash, then another curly bracket for the X, tile coordinate, and then another slash, and then curly bracket with the Y, curly bracket, and then finally with a .png file extension, since that is the image format that we published this tile map service to. Now I would enter in the minimum and maximum zoom levels that this tile map supports. And if you remember, we published it for a zoom level of 12 to 18. And so I will set those zoom levels, the min Z and the max Z. And since this tile map service is in the public workspace, I don't need to enter any user credentials. If this was published to a different workspace that was restricted to specific user credentials, I would need to enter those user credentials here at the bottom of this dialog. At this point, I would click Apply. I see that it's added the layer to my map. I'm going to turn off, this is the original TIFF image that we published, so I'll turn this layer off. Now if I turn on this tile map layer, I should see that tile map appear. And of course I can zoom in to this tile map. And again, this is referencing the tile map service on my simple GIS server instance. So this is a great way of creating your own tile map service, especially for raster imagery. Since tile maps work very well for raster imagery, and it allows you to have multiple users to be able to connect and use that raster imagery without having to share large files with other users. They can access it from a simple GIS server instance as a tile map service. So hopefully this demonstration was useful. Again, I encourage everyone to visit our website on the simplegissoftware.com. If you have any questions about Simple GIS Server or using the GIS Server admin, please drop us a line from our Contact Us page. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.